Yeah, so in studying this, what I found out is that trauma and anxiety are actually genetic. We think of our eye color and hair color as being inherited, but it isn't until the last few decades that we've realized we inherit trauma and anxiety. They studied this with descendants from Holocaust survivors, where there's this, hypervigilance to survival when there's no presence of that in their real life.
Welcome to Out of the Box with Christine. Are you willing to step into your greatness? Are you ready to shine? Well, get ready, Truth Seeker. You're in for an amazing ride. And now, here's the host of the show, Christine Blosdale.
Welcome back to, excuse me. Welcome back to Out of the Box with Christine. I am your host, Christine Blosdale, your expert authority business coach, helping entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, and just about everybody else get their message out to the world in a fun, unusual way. And I am super excited about today's show because a dear friend of mine is joining us. And what she's doing for the world is so powerful. I had to have her back on the show. She's been on the show before. You can look for that archive somewhere. But today I've got on Laura Rhodes-Levin, who is a licensed marriage and family therapist who specializes in anxiety, depression, and trauma. She's also the brand new author of The Missing Piece: Rewire Your Brain, Reduce Anxiety, and Recreate Your Life. And I'm so happy to have you back, Laura Rhodes-Levin. Welcome.
So glad to be back. I am a Blosdale fan. I just you bring so much joy and spontaneity to my life on a regular basis. Whenever I see your face pop up on my screen, my eyeballs and ears open and I go for a little ride. So thank you for making me part of one of the rides.
You know what, the time we've spent together, and Laura was actually also one of my clients, my podcast coaching clients, and she has a podcast, by the way. Also, we'll make sure we put a link to that in the show notes so people can get access to that, as well as a link to get your book, The Missing Piece. But it's called The Missing Piece for Anxiety, right? So I'm so proud of you, of all the stuff that you've been doing and all the work that you've been doing. It's amazing. But welcome back to the show as well. So you've been a little busy the last few years. Why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about what you've got going on?
Sure. So I run an anxiety center called the Missing Piece Center for Anxiety. And it's not like the Shel Silverstein piece. It's PEACE, like peace of mind. And I've also started a mental health charity that operates for the Missing Piece. So for people who couldn't afford to come or didn't have the insurance, and that's called the FEW Foundation, Pathways for Health and Emotional Wellness. And as someone who struggled deeply with anxiety since I was born, I've studied anxiety. I've tried all sorts of things like drugs and alcohol that didn't work. Well, they work temporarily, but certainly not long term. And in forming my center over the last decade, I have so many people say to me, "Oh my God, there's nothing like this. You should open one in New York, or you should open one in Brentwood, or you should." And I'm like, I don't want to be Borders. I just want to be a little bookstore in Maine. I can't teach people how to manage their anxiety and then just totally spread myself thin. So I thought, all right, what if I wrote a book? If I wrote a book, then the word could get out. My tools and my ideas could be all over the place while I sit comfortably in my comfy office. So
Fireplace.
that's why I wrote the book. Right. Fireplace going, all that.
Well, and as a fellow author, I know it's such a great feeling. I don't, because I like to create. as you know, I'm a creator, right?
Yes,
I
you
like to
are.
create podcasts and videos and TikToks and books and courses and all of that. But once you do that book, and when somebody reaches out to you who's read it and they say, I got you. I got it. I understood what you were saying, or they'll refer to something that you've written. That feeling is like, oh my gosh, you got it. Because as a writer or as a creator, you put it out there and you hope people get it, right? But when they give you that feedback, it's just the best feeling in the world.
It is. And, I get it. In my younger years, I did comedy and, making someone laugh or having someone tell you, oh my God, you cracked me up. Always, it was the greatest high I ever had. And so I didn't actually think of that now until you just said it, like someone coming up and saying, wow, I read that chapter and wow, that's just such a wonderful, exciting idea. Thought.
Well, and especially since I mean, this like the stuff I do on TikTok, people might say, "Oh, you made me laugh," but the stuff you do really changes people's lives. I mean, it's like we're dealing with some, as the subtitle says, we rewire your brain, reduce anxiety, and recreate your life. Um, Anxiety and depression, man, there's a lot of that. It's a lot.
There is.
People are going through a lot, and it's not something that's just temporary, not just, oh, it's from the COVID days. We're talking about a lot of times people being born with anxiety, like you were saying, being born or having those wires of anxiety since the very earliest memories. Can you talk a bit about that and your experience personally?
Yeah, so in studying this, what I found out is that trauma and anxiety are actually genetic. We think of our eye color and hair color as being inherited, but it isn't until the last few decades that we've realized we inherit trauma and anxiety. They studied this with descendants from Holocaust survivors, where there's this, hypervigilance to survival when there's no presence of that in their real life. And so I wonder why at 4, I living, in Tarzana in a suburb, that I thought there was a bear in the closet and that I was about to be kidnapped and, just all these fears that developed in this really innocent brain. And so I've had a chance to go back through my own family history. And the first chapter is called the trauma baton. It's about how
Mm.
it just gets passed along from generation to generation. And then the buck really can stop where you are. It doesn't have to be passed on over and over and over again because we can rewire our brains. And so then we're rewiring what we're passing on.
And those neural pathways that are dug so deep, so that the bear in the closet type scenario that we relive over and over and over and over again, that those canals get so deep that that's the go-to, right? So that if you're in traffic and somebody honks at you, there's the bear in the closet, and that response, because that's where you go. So how rewiring the brain, how do you do that?
Well, believe it or not, it's more about making a habit of rewiring your brain. So our brains are very programmable. If you have to wake up at 6 in the morning every day for work, you got a new job, you have to wake up at 6. For the first few weeks, it's hard, but after a while on a Saturday, you're waking up at 6. You've wired your brain to do that. So recognizing how your brain goes to that negative bias, how it goes to worst case scenarios automatically, and then replacing it with different thoughts. It's not enough to just say, don't think that. You
Don't think
actually
of the elephant in the
right?
right.
Uh, you can't just go, there's no bear in the closet, relax. You have to say, listen to the music. Can you hear, the can you feel the moonlight on your face? Can you hear your kitty cat purring? Like actually redirecting what you're used to connecting with. is what changes your experience in the world and your frequency, right?
Mm,
So you
uh-huh.
change your whole radio station, and now you're getting life on a completely different dimension than where you started off on.
And as we're talking about, especially with anxiety, there's um you have the generational trauma, which I do want to come back to, because man, oh man, that's really big. And I think nobody really pays attention to that, or doesn't understand that that's what happens. But also folks with neurodiversities, as far as ADHD, and I know someone personally with ADHD, and anxiety is like her middle name, right? But then also people with autism as well. I mean, my goodness. Do you have many clients that that are diagnosed with ADHD or autism or autism?
So many, so many. And in fact, one of the best forms of equipment I have here is called Neuro Feedback. And Neuro Feedback is the #1 recommended treatment by the American Pediatric Academy for ADD and ADHD. And the particular version that I use, the Offmer method, was designed by neuroscientists who had an autistic son and
Wow.
wanted to help him out. And and a lot of what we do at the center is, rather than looking at any of these as a quote disability, this is your special gift, man. This is that we just have to take that special energy, and we you can either go Jedi or you can go Darth Vader, and we're going Jedi. Um, the planet creates us to be exactly who we are, because that's what the planet needed. And once we realize that blending in is the last thing we need to do, and when we take all our pain and we realize it seasons our unique recipe, then we can serve ourselves up with joy and excitement, and to people who really get it, people who, and not everyone's going to be your flavor, but they're not your flavor either. So it works out really well. So all these things that the big pharma wants to label us with and give us pills for and medicate, that's just part of you, your special you. And how does that work for you in society, as a person, in your heart, in your soul? And that's the recreate your life part, right? Is finding your personal true purpose, because there's only one Christine Blasdale.
That's
Only
right.
one. Only one. And we don't want 30, we want you. We want to come to you specifically. No one can be Christine Blasdale like you can. And that's true of everyone in the whole entire world.
Yes. And and that is such a big, and that is a challenge for those that do have ADHD or autism. It's, well, with autism a lot of times it's that masking to try and fit in, and with ADHD a lot of times that can be the comparing with other people. Other people do this, other people do that, and why am I struggling with this? um
Mhm.
I've also with folks with ADHD, I've heard it be compared to as well, like having, on your computer when you have a lot of tabs open,
Mhm.
right? You're doing
Yeah,
you're doing
totally.
I always say I think that multitasking is like an incredible talent because I'm pretty much, I like to focus on one thing, get it done, and then go to the next thing. But my wife has many tabs open and she can multitask like nobody's business. But when you're in that self-critical phase, that can be a detriment, right? Or that can be seen as something that's not good. Um,
Yeah.
so I love what you're talking about with this. It was a neural feedback. Is that what you were saying it was?
Neurofeedback, EEG biofeedback. That's a whole story. It's the opportunity for your brain to experience itself. And it's a very brilliant technology that's used by NASA, the armed forces, sports teams, because when you're in your head, you can't make the shot. But going back to what you said about multitasking, if I may,
Yes.
I'm always learning as I am teaching. And I used to pride myself. I'm probably more like your wife of like, oh, I can multitask, I can do this. And what I'm realizing is that while I have the ability to do that, I don't care for the energy in my body that it
Mm.
takes to do that. I'm not speaking of your wife, but for me personally, I want to be calm and peaceful. And that's part of the thing about having all the windows open. What a great analogy, all the tabs open. Another one of my chapters is true peace is learning what to ignore. So
Aha. Yes. That's powerful. Yeah.
you can have a bunch of tabs open, but that doesn't mean you have to attend to all of them
Yeah.
at one time. It's your grace, it's your right, it's your own inner peace to just focus in on what's important to you in that moment and learn how to quiet the noise from all the other channels until you're ready, because then you're really using 100% of your brain all the time. If
Right.
you're doing three things at once, you really are only using 33.3% of your brain to do each task. And it,
And then
it
there's the pressure. So there's the pressure to do it right. And if you don't do it right, then that judgmental anxiety too that comes on as well. That's
yeah.
the challenge, right? Because
Well,
you're
and the energy you have to drum up to do it all.
yes, yes. I makes me want to take a nap.
Right? Exactly. Exactly.
And sometimes that's what I do. Like if I'm overwhelmed, like if there's a situation and I plot myself, I'm the turtle, you know, I'm not the rabbit, I'm the turtle. I'll plot myself out and I'll go, right, okay, I'll look at my day and I'll go, well, I have this, I can, oh, that's pretty jumbled. Okay, we got a lot of stuff going on here. But then it's not that I'll take a physical nap. Sometimes I will. I'll just go, I gotta go lay
Okay.
down. I gotta go lay down. But other times I'll take a mental nap, and the
Yeah.
mental nap is, look, I've got 2 hours in between this crazy stuff and then this other somewhat crazy stuff. And for those 2 hours, I am not going to do anything productive, whatever that
Yeah.
is, right? So it might be, I love going to the grocery store. I go to the grocery store and I'll just
Yeah.
walk down the aisles, you know, and I
Yeah.
and I shop because it's from COVID times because we weren't able to do anything, and so all I could do is go to the two grocery stores that we have here, and that was it. It was like I was allowed to go to the grocery store, so that's my treat. Is I'll go to the
Yeah.
grocery store and I'll just like look around, look at the products, and look at the ingredients, and go, is that really good for me? Yeah. So that's my little mental nap that I do.
Well, and the tortoise in the story wins the race. But I think that the hare could modify its behavior and just like instead of running back and forth like a lunatic, just run ahead, stop, hydrate, meditate, run some more. You know, you
Right.
can keep your pace, just
Just
you
don't go
know,
back and forth.
right, all over the place to
So
prove something.
yeah, well, yeah, and that's what we have. We all have moments like that. I think we all have those moments where we push ourselves a bit too much. Um, Now, part of the puzzle is, of course, is the anxiety, um, but another aspect, and of the generational trauma that we have is depression. And I know that people younger and younger, we're talking teens, preteens, kids are depressed, man. And I don't I hate to sound like my grandmother, but I don't remember this happening when I'm sure it was there. You know what I'm saying? I'm sure it was there, but I don't remember it in the large amounts of what we have today, especially with teenagers and preteens, teenagers with depression.
Agreed.
What's happening? What's going
Agreed.
on, Laura?
Our frontal cortex, and we revere it so much, that brilliant frontal cortex, our thinking part, it has not had the same chance to develop as much as the rest of our brain. And we think we're so modern on our hoverboards and we got our phones and we're doing this. And our brains are, and our bodies have not caught up with the lifestyle that we've created. And especially with younger people. I mean, I don't know, when I was little, at like 2, the big toy was that ball, that plastic ball that pulled apart and all the
Yeah.
yellow shapes came out,
Yeah.
and you put the shapes in like, woo! And we have something called brain fog, in that our brains just don't have a chance to rest anymore. They're just constantly going. And like I was talking about with the multitasking, it evokes that fight flight response. When you're trying to do all this stuff, you have to dump adrenaline and cortisol into your body to keep up that kind of pace. It's not good for our brains. It stops the manufacturing of dopamine and serotonin and oxytocin and all those feel good neurotransmitters. And on top of it, our our bodies are not experiencing, we used to have to like go out and collect lavender and hunt mammoth and do all this stuff in our effort to become comfortable, which I'm guilty. I love my couch. I love my TV. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. But we're not naturally getting those endorphins that we got from just being out in nature. And the biggest piece, I think, is we are social beings. One of the best neurotransmitters in the body is called oxytocin. It's the love neurotransmitter. It's what you get when you hug someone. It's what's exchanged between a mommy and a baby. And you cannot get that through your phone. You can't. And it's why COVID had such a drastic impact on people, because we were isolated from each other.
Yeah.
And so we need each other. We need to dance and be in circles and laugh and just be together. And so much of technology has created the illusion of togetherness, but it's not the physical experience. So our brains and our emotions are just, they're not in sync anymore.
And it's happening younger and younger. And I noticed that too with our teenagers as well, was that I could quickly see them just not doing well. And not just with the COVID thing, because everybody was panicking and freaking out and everything, right? Everybody. But what happened was that all of their whole entire life was just funneled through this thing.
Yeah.
So school, social
Yeah.
interactions, they thought that they knew people, that they thought they had relationships with people that were on the screen, right?
Right.
And so much to the point where it becomes an addiction, that
Yeah.
this
Because
cannot
that's the
be.
only dopamine you're getting some rush.
It's my drug.
Yeah.
So I'm going to sleep with my drug. I'm going to wake up to my drug. I'm going to go to the bathroom with my drug. I'm going to make sure that I got my drug on. If you've ever left the house and you don't have your phone on you, right? And
Yeah.
I'm almost 60 years old, and I'm a wise woman. But man, I'll tell you, I go out to my car and I don't have, I'm like, where'd it go? So imagine
Right.
a 15, 16-year-old,
Well,
because
and
their
I
whole
think,
world is in that device.
yes, and it's not, I think, more than even drug, because I think that's it is, I need my neurotransmitters. I need my feel good connection to my brain. And so it's not just the same as cocaine. It's literally the feeling of connection. And I've said this before, but for kids, teenagers, you take them out of school for 2 years and they don't get a chance to grow socially, emotionally. So you take a 14-year-old, you keep him at home for 2 years. Now he's 16, you put him back in school, but guess what? He's still 14.
Yes.
He's still emotionally
14.
14 years old and expected to be, ready to go to prom. And it's like, oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
so, but I don't mean to sound like a nihilist either, because yeah, all this stuff is present, but there's still so much opportunity to connect to the earth, to the planet, to your friends, to your family, to your true self. And to have that as your goal, it's awesome.
And
It's awesome.
I think part of it too is also being aware of the self-loathing, self-loathing,
Mm-hmm.
self-hatred, self-loathing that is very prevalent. And I it's fueled a lot of times by the technology in the devices, because also there's that comparison model as well, right? Well, look at all these people, they look like they're having fun, and why is my life boring, or those things.
Yeah.
But there's also, and I think even without the technology, and you were talking about this a little bit about that generational trauma, that a lot of us are born into a world of trauma, and we've carried those generational traumas. So there is a bit of self-loathing. It's not just fear. It's not just that fear. It's
Yeah.
also, I don't like who I am or what I am, right?
Mm-hmm.
And not knowing why, really.
Right. And it comes from dysfunctional parenting that
Mm-hmm.
came from dysfunctional parenting. I mean, with my grandmother, she was chased by Cossacks and her mother was killed in front of her. And so she
Oof.
goes and she grabs my mother and won't let her out of her sight and hits her with pots and pans every time she leaves the house. So then my mother lets us know, oh my God, there's kidnappers out there. And she screams and yells and she hits with brushes instead of pots and pans. So that's evolution, right? And it's all meant, believe it or not, from love, but it's just such an ignorant expression. And self-actualization, like we've only in the last several decades got past survival. We need a roof over our head. We need food and shelter, and many of us are still struggling with that.
Yeah.
But we want these dynamic relationships full of love and understanding, and most often we do not hear what other people say. When I have couples on the couch, I'm like, oh, whoa, whoa, what did you hear when she said that? Because I've had a couple come in and say, he walks in and he's like, oh, you look good in pink. And she's like, I know, thanks a lot. Never mind that. And I'm like, whoa, what did what did you hear when he said you look good in pink? And she said, he's mad I bought a blouse. And I was like, whoa, okay. And so we do interpret things so
Through our own
we
filters.
infer, and that's another reason why I don't like texting is
Yeah.
I'm okay in a text. You don't know if that's I'm okay or I'm okay. Those are very different things. And so it is about reinterpreting what our own inner critic is telling us,
Exactly.
oh, he looked at me. Oh, I better look at my clothes. I'm not good enough. I'm not whatever. And probably that other person is looking and going, oh, she's prettier than I am. It's like
Yep.
all these little hurt feelings and emotions are open wounds that people, I shouldn't say emotions are open wounds. Emotional wounds are invisible. And so someone can brush by you and say something that is completely traumatizing to you, but they can't see your emotional wounds. And they just thought they walked by and the wind blew in your direction. And you're like, oh, how could you do that?
Right. Right.
So, at the root of it, corny, it's true, self love.
Boom.
Shine your beautiful light, and the people who are meant to bask in that light will shine their beautiful lights back on you, and avoid the energy suckers.
How do we spread that message of self-love, Laura? Other than people getting your book. But seriously,
No,
seriously, like,
it's
we need to teach this. Is this something we need to teach little kids?
absolutely,
It's not happening at
absolutely.
home.
It's We don't really understand what self-care is. We don't really understand what mindfulness is. And I hear so often people say with pride, I'm harder on myself than anyone. Why? Please do not do that to yourself. The one of my chapters is called the Inner Critic, and it's connected to the outcast, because we really primitively believe if we're cast out, we will die. We need our clan to survive. And so we're very critical of ourselves. And it does not work, people. It doesn't. It doesn't work. If you have a little kid next to you who can't do well in math, you don't say, well, you're an idiot and you're never going to get good at math. So give it up now and, just call it a day, pal. You need to say you're so close. You're going to get it. You're going to get it. And saying this to yourself, because here's the thing, whatever you are thinking about yourself, in whichever way you are judging yourself, you are judging others, and you believe they are judging you with the same voice that's in your head. And that's the radio station that you're on. It sucks. It's music you don't want to listen to.
It's music.
It's I don't know what it is. It's like, and it takes time, right? You're in that. This is such an old school thing to say, because in the old days, radios, you change stations and you heard like, right? That's the growing part. But when you really do start being kind to yourself and you know how to be kind to yourself, that's what comes into your life. People are kind to you, and because that's what you demand in the most loving way. And people who aren't, you're like, these are not the droids you're looking for. You just keep going.
Yeah. Next. That's what I say. Go next.
Yeah. Next. Exactly.
And it is so much of that, like you were saying, that signal that you're sending out, that harsh, self-critical, self-loathing signal, it attracts. It's a powerful energy. Energy is powerful. And you could tell
as soon as physics.
As soon as somebody comes in the door, you can also, as soon as somebody walks into the door, you could tell their energy. They don't have to say anything. It's the energy. Yeah. And so that's, oh my goodness, we have so much work to do, Laura, to heal the world.
That's the fun of it. That's why we're here. We're here to do this work. We're here to learn how to love this life and find joy in it. And so if there were no work, it would be kind of boring. We get our light from our darkness.
And you know what I really truly also really love about you is that you, like me, you like to learn. As you learn, you share those experiences with others. So you're on a journey. You're not some holier than thou therapist who's like sitting with the couch. Tell me.
Yes, exactly.
How was your childhood? Right? You're like, yeah, you know what? I've got a bear in my closet when I was a kid. And I just love that you're co-creating and you're co-healing with people, with your beautiful clients, right? That it's a journey that you're taking together instead of this authoritarian sort of, thing. It's just so beautiful. And more people should be doing that in their respective fields. It doesn't matter if you're a teacher or if you're a therapist or you're a media coach. Having that sort of journey and connection with people is so powerful. I'm so happy for you. I'm so proud of you. I'm just delighted that you come on the show today and that you've got this great new book. So the full title again is,
I'll show you. Can I do that?
Yes. For those that are watching on YouTube, you can see this. And if you're listening to the podcast, you can go to YouTube and you can actually see the cover of the book. The Missing Piece. Rewire Your Brain, Reduce Anxiety, and Recreate Your Life by Laura Rhodes-Levin.
And if you are ordering on Amazon, it keeps changing piece, P-E-A-C-E, to P-I-E-C-E. So just put in my name, Laura Rhodes-Levin, The Missing Piece, and then the book will come up. You can
I'll put a link in the show notes. They don't even have to search. All they have to do is click that link.
Perfect.
They'll get to you. They'll get to you. And also we'll put a link to your website as well, so people can find out more about the work that you do and
Thank
get
you.
in touch with you. So thank you again, Laura. Thank you so much for being with
Oh,
me.
you
I
taught me
adore you.
I adore you too. And thank you so much for having me, and have a beautiful everything.
Thank you, my love. Thank you. And I want to thank you, wonderful listeners and viewers who are watching on YouTube. If you want to subscribe to the podcast, you can on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the major platforms, Audible, Amazon. And I encourage you to also subscribe to the YouTube channel, because then you can see my lovely guest, Laura Rhodes-Levin, and all the great guests that we have here on Out of the Box with Christine. If you want more information about me and the coaching I do, go to christineblasdale.com. If you want more information about the show, outoftheboxwithchristine.com. All those links will be in the show notes, so you don't have to travel anywhere. Just click those links and you'll get to where you want to go.
Oh my God, if you want to learn how to do a podcast, go to Christine.
I've got a good story to tell you about that. I'll tell you after we get off the show. As I always say to wonderful listeners and subscribers, remember to always think outside that damn box. Bye for now.